Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something really special. We're decoding one of the most revered and ancient texts in existence, the Sri Vishnu Sahasranama. We're going to unpack the 1,000 divine names of Lord Vishnu, but, not just as a religious hymn. We're going to look at this ancient text through a totally unique lens. We'll be examining its profound philosophical roots right alongside the hard modern neuroscience that explains exactly what it does to the human brain.
Okay, let's dive into this. Most people hear about the Vishnu Sahasranama and just think of it as a poetic list of divine names or personality traits. But what if it's much more than that? What if this text is actually a highly sophisticated framework, like literally a structural language describing how reality itself sustains equilibrium? Looking at it from that perspective completely changes how we understand this ancient code. So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover its origin in the Mahabharata, explore it as a structural language, and then compare the classic views of Shankara and Bhattar. After that, we'll dive into the modern neuroscience and finally wrap up with how you can put this into modern practice.
Section 1. Origin in the Mahabharata.
To truly understand the sheer gravity of this text, we have to travel back thousands of years to the aftermath of a devastating war. The Sahasranama actually appears in the Anushasana Parva of the Mahabharata, and the context here is absolutely crucial. The great warrior Bhishma Pitamaha is dying on a bed of arrows. The eldest Pandava, Yudhishthira, approaches him, just completely consumed by post-war despair, and asks for the ultimate truth. In his final, agonizing moments, Bhishma doesn't offer a ritual. He offers the Vishnu Sahasranama as a guide out of that profound sorrow. And honestly, when someone speaks at the very end of their life, you listen.
Moving right along to Section 2, a structural language.
Now, what's really interesting about this is figuring out what exactly Bhishma was transmitting. If we shift our lens from epic mythology to linguistics, we start to see that in Sanskrit, names define structural functions. Take the core definition of the name Vishnu itself. It comes from the Sanskrit root vis, which means to pervade, to enter, and to sustain from within. In biology, we call this homeostasis. In physics, it's equilibrium. But this ancient text, it calls it Vishnu. So these aren't just adjectives. They literally describe the governing intelligence of how reality holds itself together.
And if we look at the opening verses, we see this immediately. The very first names establish this massive structural scale. We've got Vishwam, meaning the entire universe itself, Vashatkara, the one invoked through Vedic offering, Bhutatma, the inner soul of all living beings, and Purshottama, the supreme being. So right out of the gate, Vishnu is characterized as the ultimate governing intelligence of the past, present, and future.
Now, as we break down the subsequent verses, specifically verses 3 through 6, we see these structural attributes functioning as very real tools for human psychology. Narasimha isn't just a historical avatar. Invoking this name is said to grant absolute fearlessness. Padmanabha represents continuous cosmic creation, and Hrishikesha provides mastery over one's own senses and mind. By chanting these specific attributes, the practitioner is actively using them to purify the mind and gain deep emotional control.
All right, Section 3, Shankara versus Bhatara.
Because this text is so incredibly dense, it's naturally sparked some intense historical debates regarding how to properly interpret it. On one side, we have the great Advaita philosopher Adi Shankara, and on the other, the brilliant Vishishtadvaita scholar Parasara Bhattar. Shankara generally views Vishnu as Nirguna Brahman, meaning the formless, indestructible, absolute reality, drawing heavily on Shruti texts like the Upanishads. For instance, he interprets the name Avyaya as simply indestructible. Bhattar, however, views Vishnu as Saguna Brahman. This is a supreme being with attributes focusing heavily on devotion, grace, and the precise etymology of the words. So he interprets Avyaya as the Lord who never sends back a liberated soul. Another great example is the name Shiva. Shankara says this means pure, free from the three gunas, while Bhattar says it means he who confers auspiciousness. It is truly fascinating to see how carefully these scholars impartially navigate the exact same text to highlight completely different facets of the divine.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, Neuroscience of the Sahasranama. We've talked about ancient metrology and the quality engineering of the soul, but how does this hold up in a modern scientific laboratory? Well, let's jump straight into 2026 clinical neuroscience. In a fascinating peer-reviewed study published by the Science Publishing Group, researchers Prakash and Joshi conducted an EEG-based spectral analysis of the Vishnu Sahasranama. They didn't just ask people how they felt, They physically measured brainwave activity during mantra recitation to see if this ancient rhythmic chanting produces actual measurable neurophysiological changes. And what makes this study so incredibly robust is its diverse participant pool. They tested 100 participants ranging from 18 to 65 years old, split perfectly 50-50 between men and women. The cultural demographics are wild too. Only 35% were South Asian, while 60% came from European, African, and Middle Eastern backgrounds. This brilliantly illustrates that the Vishnu Sahasranama isn't just some cultural artifact. It is an active, cognitive technology that works regardless of your age, your gender, or where you were born.
So the crucial point is what they actually found in those EEG readings. The rhythmic, repetitive structure of the chant literally alters neural oscillatory activity. They measured significant increases in alpha and theta band activity, which are the brainwaves directly associated with deep relaxation and reduced stress. They also found a synchronization of specific frequencies that supported memory retention and enhanced attentional control. Simply put, listening to or chanting these specific sound frequencies literally rewires your brain dynamics to lower stress and sharpen your mind. It's a real game changer.
Which brings us to Section 5, Modern Practice and Benefits.
So how do we practically apply this ancient, scientifically backed tool in our busy modern lives? The absolute beauty of the Vishnu Sahasranama is its accessibility. You really don't need elaborate rituals. The optimal time is early morning, known as Brahma Muhurta, but honestly, evenings work perfectly fine too. Simply sit in a clean, quiet space facing north or east. You don't even need incense or offerings. The only true requirement is sincere focus and devotion. Even just listening to the audio with your full attention yields incredible cognitive and emotional benefits.
But let's be real for a second. A full recitation takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and some days you just don't have that kind of time. Well, the ancient sages actually anticipated this and provided a practical hack called the Eka Shloki. It's a single verse, Namo Stavana Anantaye Sahasramurtaye. Chanting this one powerful verse is said to hold the equivalent cognitive and spiritual power of all 1,000 names combined. It is literally the perfect shortcut for a busy modern lifestyle.
We've journeyed all the way from a dying warrior on a battlefield thousands of years ago to the intricate debates of medieval philosophers, straight into the EEG labs of 2026. The Vishnu Sahasranama proves to be an incredibly sophisticated structural code that actively harmonizes the human mind. So I'll leave you with this thought. If a 1,000-word ancient Sanskrit code has been clinically proven to rewire your brain for peace and focus, what other ancient technologies are we completely ignoring today? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go explore this incredible text for yourself.